All right. Lot to unpack from that Eagles Cowboys game. Eagles beat the Cowboys 24-20 at home. I mean, game really got off to a rocky start from even before even before the clock started counting down. But if there's anything I learned from this game, or not that I learned, but if there's anything that this game proved, is that my quarterback is elite. If this game against the Eagles and the Cowboys showed me anything, should show football fans anything, if there's anything football fans should have walked away with after watching this game, it's that Jalen Hurts is undoubtedly an elite quarterback in the NFL. There should be no more question. It should be no longer up for debate. Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback in the NFL. He is one of the ones in the NFL. No matter what went wrong around him, no matter what wasn't going right, no matter what was failing around him, Jalen Hurts still found a way to produce. Jalen Hurts still found a way to make plays, still found a way to get it done, still found a way to put this offense in the best position to succeed. There's no way there's no way any football fans can seriously walk away from this game thinking that the Eagles did not win because of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is really the only reason why the Eagles won tonight. Jalen Hurts is the sole reason why the Eagles were able to escape the Cowboys at home. A game that you all saw, a game that I thought was going to be a blowout. A game that I thought the Eagles would have won 48-10, 48-17 at the most by the Cowboys. In a game that I thought was going to be a blowout, it instead was a fist fight until the last series of the game. The Eagles won. The Eagles beat the Cowboys tonight in week 1 because of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts put the Eagles squad on his back and delivered a W. That's not something a game manager could do. If Jalen Hurts was just the game manager, the Eagles would have lost tonight. The passing game wasn't working. The Cowboys found a way to stuff Saquon Barkley in the run game, especially when Landon Dickerson left the game. They stuffed the run. They were putting pressure on Jalen Hurts. The defense, at least the secondary, couldn't stop CeeDee Lamb at all. Nothing else was going right for this Eagles team against the Cowboys. The only thing that was going right was Jalen Hurts. The only thing that still was that the only part of this Eagles performance, the only reliable part of the Eagles game against the Cowboys, the only part that was working was Jalen Hurts in the pocket. The way Jalen Hurts maneuvered in the pocket, the way he was able to avoid the pressure that the Cowboys sent his way, the way he was still able to keep his eyes downfield, just hoping someone would get open, the way he was able to still get yards with his legs because he wasn't able to get it with his arm, the way he was still able to put points on the scoreboard, even though his receivers couldn't get open, even though his MVP candidate running back wasn't able to find lanes in the run game. Even though nothing else was going right, Jalen Hurts was still a factor. Jalen Hurts was the only thing that went right for this Eagles team. And if Jalen Hurts was just a game manager, that wouldn't have been the case. That wouldn't have been the case. If there is anything that was proved tonight, if this game showed us anything, it's that Jalen Hurts is more than just a game manager. No matter what went wrong around Jalen Hurts was still able to produce. Game managers aren't able to do that. Game managers are able to manage to manage their circumstance, manage the talent that is around them, to manage their circumstance, their situation in the game. Jalen Hurts did way more than that. Jalen Hurts surpassed his circumstances. Jalen Hurts surpassed the the talent that was lacking around him tonight. Jalen Hurts surpassed an off night for Saquon Barkley in the run game. Jalen Hurts surpassed an off night for really the offensive line. What's supposed to be the best offensive line in the NFL. Jalen Hurts surpassed his receivers not being able to find holes in the defense, not really being able to get open. Jalen Hurts surpassed the defense not being able to contain CeeDee Lamb. Surpassed the secondary from really being torched by Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. Surpassed the pressure that the defensive line was not able to create consistently, was not able to the pressure that the defensive line was not able to put on Dak Prescott consistently throughout the game. Jalen Hurts surpassed all of those failures tonight by this overall Eagles team. A game manager could not do that. When's the last time we saw Jared Goff deliver a W for the Lions when it was an off night for Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery or Sam Laporta? When have we seen Joe Burrow had to overcome the off nights of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, still being able to deliver a W in spite of Jamar Chase or T. Higgins being non-factors in that game? When have we seen these quarterbacks that you all say are better than Jalen Hurts deliver W's regardless of their circumstance, regardless of having to overcome what is failing around them? Jared Goff, we've never seen Jared Goff have to win a game, have to overcome circumstances to win a game. We've never seen Joe Burrow have to overcome his circumstances to win a game when absolutely nothing else is going right. We've never seen those guys deliver W's in those circumstances. We saw that from Jalen Hurts against the Cowboys in week 1. We saw Jalen Hurts deliver regardless of everything else sort of falling apart around him. There's no way you could have watched this week 1 game between the Cowboys and the Eagles and not walk away with the mindset that Jalen Hurts is one of them ones. Jalen Hurts is one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. No dominant showing from A.J. Brown tonight was a non-factor. Only 1 reception in the game. No dominant showing from Devontae Smith tonight. No dominant showing from Saquon Barkley tonight, who had fewer rushing yards than Jalen Hurts. The defense struggled really the whole game due to which you could say was due to Jalen Carter's unexpected absence for the entire game. There's nothing else you can really credit on this Eagles squad against the Cowboys for delivering the dub tonight. The defense had a strong last series, but even in that was more so on CeeDee Lamb dropping the ball than the Eagles secondary playing good defense. There was nothing else you can really credit for the Eagles pulling out this win against the Cowboys other than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts did way more than manage the game tonight. He did way more than manage the game against the Cowboys. But, speaking of things not going right, the Eagles Kevin Patullo has to figure out how to get A.J. Brown more involved in this offense. Which, I'm not concerned in a sense where I doubt that he won't I doubt he will be able to find a way. Like, I don't think I don't think that'll be a problem moving forward. I mean, I know it's only week one, you know, and I think as a passing coordinator, as a former passing game coordinator, I would like to think that Kevin Patullo knows how to structure and maneuver different things within the passing game. I would like to think Kevin Patullo knows how to work certain guys in to make sure certain guys get the ball within the passing game. But whatever he's going to do, it's definitely got to get done. A.J. Brown has to be more of a presence within this offense. There is no reason as to why A.J. Brown should only have one reception throughout the entire game. In 3 hours of play, or maybe 2.5, there's no reason why A.J. Brown should only have one reception. One reception that he really didn't even get until the second half. There's no reason A.J. Brown should have 0 receptions in the first half. There's no reason why the second best receiver, really arguably the best receiver in the NFL, should have 0 targets, 0 receptions throughout the entire first half. There's no excuse for that. Kevin Patullo as the offensive coordinator has to figure out a way to get A.J. Brown more involved and earlier in the future. Because there's no way the Eagles can continue to win. This offense can succeed in the future with A.J. Brown continuing to be an afterthought in this offense the way he was tonight. There needs to be much more of a focus on A.J. Brown, especially when we see a defense that knows how to contend and stop the run game of the Eagles. A.J. Brown has to be more of a focus in this offense when the Eagles do see other defenses this season that plan to focus on suppressing Saquon Barkley in this run game, on defenses that plan on stacking the box. Kevin Patullo needs to figure out a way to make defenses pay for stacking the box against Saquon Barkley. I believe he can do it. I believe he will do it. But it's something that we definitely need to see if the Eagles are to sort of repeat this year. If the Eagles plan on getting close to back-to-back, going close to back-to-back this season, A.J. Brown has to be more of a focus, definitely more of a focus than he was against the Cowboys in week one, but he really has to be more of an offensive focus for the Eagles than he was the entirety of last season. Saquon Barkley should not have nearly as much of a workload as he had last season when we have a receiver like A.J. Brown, when we have a receiver duo like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The Eagles cannot continue to win games in the future with the schedule that we have this year, with A.J. Brown being targeted 3 or less times. That's not a winning formula for the Birds. It's not a winning formula for the Birds, bro. With the mismatch that A.J. Brown is able to present on just about any DB, any secondary in the NFL, just about, A.J. Brown needs to be an immediate target, an immediate focus for this offensive scheme. So, but in terms of guys that were factors, Jahan Dotson. Things didn't work out well with A.J. Brown tonight, whether it was him not being able to get open. I still think more targets would have helped that situation. But even though things didn't work out well with A.J. Brown tonight, even though we didn't see much of Devontae Smith tonight, Jahan Dotson at least showed the type of deep threat that he can be, the type of deep threat that he is when he does get targets. When Jahan Dotson actually gets the opportunity, he showed the type of asset he is and can be in the future for this Eagles offense. Just like I said before, the sky is the limit for this Eagles offense with Jahan Dotson being more involved. With Kevin Patullo's expertise in expanding the passing game, there's really nothing this offense is not capable of because of the talent that is in this offense. The fact that we have a guy like Jahan Dotson as the number 3 receiver, that should tell you how dynamic this offense can be once we really get the passing game going. Jahan Dotson and Jalen Hurts connect for a 52-yard bomb to put the Eagles in a position to score. 52-yard bomb. Probably going to be the longest play in all of week 1. Contested catch at that. Perfect throw by Jalen Hurts. Great catch in stride by Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson showed against the Cowboys the type of playmaker he is when he gets the opportunity, when he gets the look. We saw his deep threat capabilities tonight. We've seen in the past the ability he has as a ball carrier, as the guy who can weave through traffic, who can get yards after the catch. So we may not have seen what we wanted to see from AJ Brown and Devontae Smith tonight, being one of those elite receiver duos in the NFL, arguably the best receiver duo in the NFL. But we did at least see that spark from our number 3 receiver, which is exactly what I said we would see leading into this game if Jahan Dotson was able to get more looks as well. So we not only know what we have in a receiver duo, we got a glimpse of what the Eagles could have in this receiver trio with Jahan Dotson. The Eagles not only have arguably the best receiver duo in the NFL, with what we saw from Jahan Dotson against the Cowboys, his ability to hurt a defense in the deep thirds of the field, sort of adding that to his arsenal of being able to be a short yardage receiver, a yak type of receiver. It also showed that the Eagles could potentially have the best receiver trio in the NFL. With how elite AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are, Jahan Dotson is the perfect complement to that group. He clearly has the chemistry with Jalen Hurts where it could possibly not take away from AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. That's an important thing. The fact that Jahan Dotson has his own chemistry with Jalen Hurts, where it doesn't take away from AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, that's a dangerous thing for really the entire NFL, especially the NFC. The way Jalen Hurts was able to connect with Jahan Dotson tonight, it not only makes you worry about Jalen Hurts and his ability and his deep ball ability, which we know is one of, if not the best deep ball in the NFL. It also forces you to worry about this other receiver that the Eagles have now, their number 3 in Jahan Dotson. So tonight really showed the league that it's not just a duo that opposing defenses have to worry about in AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. It's also a trio. It's a trio that defenses have to worry about. It's way more of a pick your poison offense than what defenses thought going into this season. It's not just paying attention to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith on the outsides. It's not just paying attention to Saquon Barkley in the backfield. It's not just keeping an eye out on their sneaky tight end in Dallas Goedert, their underrated tight end in Dallas Goedert. It's also paying attention to this true number 3 receiver a guy who could be a number 2 receiver on almost any other team. You have it's just another valuable piece in this offense that defenses have to worry about. That makes it really near impossible to game plan for. Jahan Dotson, we're going to see a lot of Jahan Dotson this season with Kevin Patullo expanding more on that passing game. And I'm here for it. Because the more Jahan Dotson is able to do in this offense, the more dangerous Jalen Hurts will be to defenses, the more slack and room to breathe AJ Brown and Devontae Smith will have. And really, the easier time it'll be for Saquon Barkley to find lanes. Because if you now can't stack the box against Saquon Barkley, you got to have extra help up top to watch these receivers. And if you have extra help up top, if you have an extra DB in to guard against the pass, to protect against the pass, it's not like you can double team one person. You can't double team AJ Brown no matter how good he is against single coverage, because then that just means Devontae Smith can kill you. That just means Dallas Goedert can rip you apart. We now see that means Jahan Dotson can pick you apart. And we know they have the quarterback. The Eagles have the quarterback that can get the ball in those tight windows in Jalen Hurts. But if he can't get the ball in those tight windows, we know he'll be able to hurt a defense with his legs, just like he did against the Cowboys tonight in week 1. So that's one thing. It was a very, very promising thing to see, very comforting thing to see from Jahan Dotson tonight in terms of those big plays that he had, especially that huge play he had with that 50 plus yard catch he had from, in the first half. Huge positive to take away from this game for sure on the offensive end. Now, something not so positive, obviously, was Jalen Carter. That might have been one of the dumbest things I've ever seen a player do during a game. One of the dumbest things I've ever seen a player do. You're going to spit on Dak Prescott. Not even just spit on him, which is a crazy, revolting, disgusting thing to do. You're going to spit on him right in front of the ref? Like, it's one thing to do that at the bottom of the pile, or in a crowd, in a pile up, or in a dog pile type of situation, in the middle of chaos. You're gonna do it right in front of the ref. That's the dumbest thing. It's not only the most disrespectful thing a player could do, not only the most just non-professional player thing to do. It's just the dumbest thing to do. Just flat out dumb. And then in the result of that, you not only get yourself disqualified for the entirety of this game, which was really supposed to be a tone setter game for this Bird squad, especially this defense that is trying to show that they are still as dominant as the Eagles defense from last year in 2024, even though they're younger than that squad, even though they have a few pieces that aren't on the squad this year that were there that last year, still trying to show that they are equally as dominant, if not more dominant. In what was going to be a tone setter game for not just the team, but this defense especially, you get yourself kicked out of the game. As the best player on the defense, you get yourself kicked out of the game. But you not only get kicked out of this game, You now are possibly facing a suspension, which will at the least be 3 to 4 games, 3 to 4 additional games. That can make a break your season. The way the defense looked against the Cowboys tonight without Jalen Carter, those 3 or 4 games could very well be the difference between the Eagles fighting for a wild card spot and the Eagles clinching the conference. The Eagles clinching that first seed like they did last year, like we did last year. Just the dumbest move a player could make. Not only was it disgusting, disrespectful, just like something that you never want to see a player do on a football field during regulation minutes. It was also stupid because it not only made you look bad, but you got yourself kicked out of the game. It hurts the squad. Without Jalen Carter, like there were several plays. There were several plays against the Cowboys squad that would have gone a totally different way had Jalen Carter been on the field. There's no way Dak Prescott isn't sacked at least 3 more times than what he was tonight. 0 sacks on the night. There's no way Dak Prescott is walking away from this game not touching the ground, not touching the turf one time, at least one time, with Jalen Carter being in the game. There's no way. With the way Dak Prescott was able to escape Nolan Smith, Moro Jomo, Josh Uche, Jordan Davis, there's no way Dak Prescott would have been able to have that same success evading the pocket had Jalen Carter been in the game. And if we get Dak Prescott on the turf 2 or 3 more times, or even one more, or even just one more time, that's a totally different game. That's a totally different game, totally different outcome that the Eagles come out with as opposed to what they ended up coming out with. Totally different result to this game. If Jalen Carter is in the game, this Eagles Cowboys matchup goes from being a 24-20 dub for the Eagles to possibly being a 35-17 dub for the Eagles. A 31-10 W for the Eagles. It's a different score with Jalen Carter in the game. Because with Jalen Carter in the game, more attention is now on Jalen Carter. We at least see 1 or 2 double teams in this game on Jalen Carter, which obviously then frees up Nolan Smith to execute a sack. Frees up Jordan Davis to execute a sack. Frees up Josh Uche or Azeez Ojulari to get a sack, or Jalix Hunt to get a sack. It's a totally different defense with Jalen Carter on the field. With Jalen Carter on the field, CeeDee Lamb doesn't dice up the secondary the way he did tonight. Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb don't dissect the secondary the way they did tonight if Jalen Carter's on the field. With Jalen Carter on the field, Adoree Jackson maybe doesn't look as bad as he did tonight. With Jalen Carter on the field, Quinion Mitchell looks a little better than what he did tonight. With Jalen Carter on the field, CeeDee Lamb doesn't have opportunities at the ball in the crunch time of the game, possibly putting the Cowboys in a position to potentially win the game, to potentially seal the game, making Dak Prescott look like a clutch quarterback. This is a totally different game with Jalen Carter involved, with Jalen Carter present. Totally different game. But one thing that definitely needs to be solved is this cornerback 2 situation. Adoree Jackson looked atrocious tonight against CeeDee Lamb. Adoree Jackson needs to never see game time minutes again unless somebody gets hurt. But there's no reason why Adoree Jackson should have even been in that position. There's no reason why Adoree Jackson should have been guarding CeeDee Lamb for a majority of the game. Adoree Jackson was getting cooked. He was getting cooked. He was getting spanked like he came home with a bad report card after school. He was getting cooked, getting whooped. Quinyon Mitchell should have been the primary defender for CeeDee Lamb. It should have been a tag team between Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. When CeeDee Lamb was in the slot, Cooper DeJean should have been the one over top of him, should have been the one shadowing him. When CeeDee Lamb was on the outside, Quinyon Mitchell should have been head up on him. Adoree Jackson should have been nowhere near CeeDee Lamb as often and as much as he was in tonight's game against the Cowboys. Really, the first couple of snaps should have told you that. Vic Fangio should have made that adjustment way earlier than what he ended up doing. There's no reason Vic Fangio should have waited until the third or fourth quarter to switch Adoree Jackson off of CeeDee Lamb. Like there's just no way. But the cornerback 2 problem is definitely something that needs to be addressed. Definitely something that needs to be fixed for this Eagles defense, because there is no way with the receivers that the Eagles are going to see this year, seeing Terry McLaurin this year, seeing Malik Neighbors this year, seeing the talented guys that the Eagles are going to see this year. There is no way this can stand. There's no way this defense can operate with this current cornerback 2 situation. Honestly, Vic Fangio may need to consider moving Cooper DeJean to cornerback 2. Vic Fangio, after tonight, may need to consider moving Cooper DeJean to cornerback 2 full time, at least until maybe Jacorian Bennett gets more acclimated to the defense. Or at least until maybe they sign someone else out of free agency. But Vic Fangio should really be considering moving Cooper DeJean to cornerback 2 primarily, at least for the time being. He had a lot of reps at corner, throughout the offseason, during preseason. Something Vic Fangio, reps that Vic Fangio was very impressed with. Both his ability to play corner, but also to play that sort of nickel safety role, that hybrid DB position. With how weak the Eagles look at the opposite corner right now of Quinyon Mitchell, Vic Fangio should really consider moving Cooper DeJean down to cornerback 2 and plugging Andrew Makuba in as that nickel back, as that nickel safety. With Reed Blankenship, with a somewhat healthy Sidney Brown, with an Andrew Makuba, and with a cornerback duo of Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, that's really what seems like is the best chance this Eagles defense has at sustaining a competitive secondary, at sustaining an elite level secondary close to what they had last season. Having that lineup in where you have those 5 guys potentially involved in this defense for a majority of the series that this defense will play this year, that this unit will play this year, that really seems like the best chance that Vic Fangio and this unit has at being successful this year. At least until Jacorian Bennett, I guess, gets more acclimated or is able to get more comfortable in his role. Cooper DeJean at cornerback 2 could be something lethal. Could be a lethal move, a lethal addition for the secondary. Especially when we're now in a position where the secondary does need a reinforcement to make up for the absence of Jalen Carter on that defensive line. Now that quarterbacks will have a little more time to throw the ball, not with Jalen Carter likely missing the next 3 or 4 games, the secondary could use that reinforcement, could use that sort of insurance where Cooper DeJean is on the field longer and is on the field more often than just being a situational nickelback, being a situational DB. Not having Jalen Carter for the string of games that he's getting ready to be suspended for, you need a guy at cornerback that you can trust. You need a guy at DB that you can trust. You need a guy who is you need someone you can trust playing that position, a position that is on the field for a majority of the game. And that guy is Cooper DeJean. That guy can be Cooper DeJean. So with a cornerback duo like Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, with over-top safety help in Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, and Andrew Makuba, who also had a good night tonight, a solid night tonight, that could be this defense's best chance at still being competitive, still creating sort of that blanket type of coverage in the absence of Jalen Carter. And speaking of those rookies, the rookies did step up tonight. Jahad Campbell and Andrew Makuba definitely stepped up tonight in their respective roles. Nakobe Dean still being hurt. Jahad Campbell seeing more time with Nakobe Dean still being out. And then, of course, Andrew Makuba getting more time with Sidney Brown having to exit the game. The rookies definitely stepped up. Definitely stepped up. And if Vic Fangio is to switch over to this scheme where Cooper is now cornerback 2, freeing, opening up a spot for more of a primary spot for Andrew Makuba on this defense, we really could see this defense produce 2 defensive rookie of the year candidates again in Jahad Campbell and Makuba. We really could see this defensive unit have back-to-back years where it has produced 2 defensive rookie of the year candidates on the same team. That is definitely something that we could see this year if Andrew Makuba does get those type of minutes in light of Sidney Brown's injury and, of course, Jalen Carter's absence. But if there is something that this defense can rely on, it's definitely Zach Bond. Zach Bond was no doubt the anchor of the defense tonight. 9 tackles, one pass deflection. Zach Bond was everywhere tonight, just like he was last year. He not only helped stuff the run. He didn't just stuff the run. He was also vital in the pass. He was also vital against the pass. He was able to cover tight ends. He was able to cover running backs, running flare routes and running different routes out of the backfield. Zach Bond is the anchor of this defense, and he proved that tonight. With no Jalen Carter, he was still able to be a factor. With no sacks from the defensive line tonight, Zach Bond was still able to be a presence and was still able to suppress the offense as much as he could, was still able to do his job efficiently, was still able to be a playmaker on the field. Zach Bond is just another example of Howie Roseman being smart with his money. Just another example. But that's all for today's edition of No Shame with Shane. If you haven't already, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms. And I will be back later on with more shameless takes.